What is up? It is Johnny here, and in this episode, I want to talk about the simple things that you can do to up your fees. Why? Because most commonly, when I'm dealing with a coach or a consultant, some type of service business where there is some form of knowledge and expertise involved, the number one complaint I hear is that they don't get paid what they're worth. And obviously that sucks because anytime your fees are lower than you believe they're worth, you are not going to do a good job. That's just the reality of it, right? If you don't feel like you're being fairly compensated, why would you do a great job? But there are simple things that you can do. In fact, there are just two things that you need to do if you want to up your fees. And they're not very hard to do. And it all has to do with something called anchor pricing. And anchor pricing is about using numbers to manipulate how someone feels about your preferred package. Let me explain. Now, let me tell you really quickly. First and foremost, it is almost better in every single case when you are presenting an offer to present more than one. You might be thinking that will overcomplicate the offer and give people too many things to think about. It's not the case if you're harnessing the power of anchor pricing, which I'll teach you in a second. But for the most part, it has to do with the fact that if there's only one option, people can either say yes or no. If there are two options, or as I prefer, three options, it's an either or. And that immediately changes the way that someone feels about what you're selling. Now, let me talk to you about the number side of things. And it really starts by having what you believe is your preferred. And you've really got to ask yourself, okay, well, what do I want to charge here? What do I want to stack up? And how can I make this as exciting as possible for the prospect? Once you've got your preferred and you know exactly how you want to price that, and for the purpose of this experiment, let's say it was, I don't know, a $4,800 a month, right? Let's say you got this $4,800 a month package. That is your preferred thing for someone to buy. Now, if it's a yes or no, and that's all you present, then it's going to be this do I want this right now, or do I not want to do anything type of question that people are going to ask themselves. They might ask you to lower your fees. They want to get wiggle room. They want to see how far they can haggle you down. The reality is, when you only present one option, it's going to give people plenty of different ways to try and object to the price, right? So $4,800 is our preferred. The first thing you want to do is work out what's your premium. This is on the other end of the spectrum. What's your premium? And the best premium option is usually 4 to 5 times as expensive. So if I wanted to sell something that was $4,800, I would initially lead that sales conversation or that pitch, that proposal, whatever it's going to be, with an option that's at least 4 times more expensive. So, hey, option number one is you could buy this here, and in this case, it might be $25,000 a month. And don't make the offer bullshit, right? Make the $25,000 option if you want to sell something that's 4,800. Make that stack up. So if you're a coach, perhaps you're doing everything virtual for 4,800 bucks a month, but maybe you fly out and you sit in their boardroom for 2 days a month for 25 grand. I don't know. That might beef up the value and therefore give someone something to consider. However, in reality, we're really using that as an anchor point. Now, what do I mean by an anchor point? So we want to take away the price shock when you get to your preferred. And if you look around, if you, especially in a B2C setting, like a Costco or an expensive handbag store, what you'll notice is at Costco, the most expensive things are at the front, like TVs and Rolexes. You're not going to Costco to buy a TV or a Rolex, right? But they're at the front because it's proven that if those big numbers exist at the front, you're more likely to leave with a shopping trolley that might have $700 or $800 worth of groceries in there. Whereas before you might have thought that was going to be too much to spend. The same thing goes for a luxury goods store. The stuff in the window is always the most expensive stuff. So that way, when you ask about purchasing that stuff, you get the price shock out of the way, and then they offer you an alternative that's pretty damn close, that's way cheaper. So suddenly you spend 2 grand where you may not have spent 500 bucks if you just walked in and went to look at something, right? So that's anchor pricing. It's about using a big number to set your number within their reality. It's about reframing their reality about what they should be spending. So I always lead with a premium, which in this case for this experiment, let's talk about it being at $25,000. So I lead with the $25,000 option. That gets the price shock out of the way. It also sets my value. They know that my value is not cheap. They know that my value is high. The next thing I do is I introduce my Patsy. See, I don't introduce my preferred yet. I introduce what we call my Patsy product. And that there is usually only 20 to 30% cheaper than what you want to sell as your preferred in the middle. However, it's missing the most important bits that make sense for the prospect. It's stripping away stuff that would be really important for them. So perhaps, you got a prospect in front of you that really likes the idea of being coached by you directly if you're a consultant, let's say. And maybe then your Patsy product, instead of it being $4,800, is $3,600 a month, but maybe that's for group training. Maybe that reduces the amount of time they get with you privately, or maybe it's a group program, maybe it's self-paced, maybe it's something else, right? But the point is, you've got this other thing that's about 20 or 30% cheaper. In this case, I've pulled a number out of thin air, $3,600. And so you've now got this $3,600 a month option, which the prospect says, well, that's better in terms of numbers, but not really what I want, which means now you can make a recommendation in the middle. And for them, they're now expecting, well, if there's something in the middle, it's going to be halfway between $3,600 and $25,000. But in fact, it's now $4,800. And for $4,800, here are all the things that I can give you. And it's going to contain the most juicy bits that they want. And the reason why you're doing this is because at the moment, and I've pulled a hypothetical price point, but at the moment, you're probably looking at your own products or services and saying, shit, I need to get paid more, right? And the hardest way to do that is just by putting up the rate and not adding any anchoring, because you're just creating more room for haggle down and more room for objection, more room for feet dragging. We want to avoid that at all costs. So what do? You set a premium option that is 4 to 5 times more expensive. That's going to get the price shock out of the way, but also remind your prospects that your value is way up here. That's where it sits. On the flip side, we're going to use a Patsy product that's only a little bit cheaper to take than your preferred product, right? To take away this idea of haggle down. Well, if you want something that's costing less, you've got this option. Well, I don't want that option. Of course you don't. So here it is. Here's what I'm recommending to you. And that's where the preferred sits in the middle. And I guarantee you that if you want to double your fees, you just add the anchoring. That's most of the work done. So give it a go. If you want to increase your fees, add the anchor points. Let me know how you go.